Hello everyone, my name is Tanya and I will be your second teacher today in the Peaceful Solution, Character Education, and I'm going to pick up where Laura left off, and she was talking about responsibility. She had a very great point when she was talking about age appropriateness when it comes to responsibilities, and it really made me think about my lesson on honesty, because we have to also remember about the peaceful solution. It's important to teach the peaceful solution, right? So, of course, there's many different levels of the peaceful solution, but most of it focuses on children. So, we're not all children. How many of you are in grade 5?
I mostly am.
It's been a little while since you've been in grade 5, but the Peaceful Solution Character Education program, the way the lessons are made is so that you can adapt them. So today we're going to be talking about honesty in my portion of the class, but I'm going to really focus hard on how you can teach it and adapt it to different age levels. So that's something we really want to focus on. I made this copy so that everyone can kind of see how the lesson plans are done in the Peaceful Solution. It tells you what materials you're going to need. It tells you step-by-step procedure. I mean, it's so simple. When it comes to the Peaceful Solution and how to teach it, it's really been made as simple as possible. You can tell this was made by people who really intended to use it, right? We really want it to be usable. I'm a homeschool mom. And let me tell you, you walk into some of those stores and there's books everywhere and you can just be dazzled. But when you start trying to use them, a lot of the time it doesn't really work. You know, it doesn't really connect on how do I apply this when I actually get it at home and start using it, when I get it into the workplace, when I want to use it. You know, and that's what the Peaceful Solution is, so simple. So today we're going to talk about honesty. In the lesson, I'm going to tell you the page. In grade 5, Do Not Steal. It is lesson 6 on page 275. Well, it's 275 in the adult teacher's edition. It is page 153 in the student workbook. This is the workbook that you would be giving to the students to work out of, okay? And it has a little narrative, and it's called Honesty Prevents Stealing. So I'm going to read this to you, and I want you to think, when I'm reading this, how would you adapt this to a room full of slightly more mature ladies, right? We're none of us old. We're just a little mature, right? Andrew's parents instructed him to clean the yard. While he was cleaning the yard, his friends Carlos and Jimmy stopped by and asked him to come with them and play a game of football. Andrew explained that he had to clean the yard before he could go. Carlos and Jimmy told him that he could clean the yard after he was finished playing ball. Now remember, we're talking about honesty. Now, how many of you are connecting with going outside and playing football instead of cleaning the yard? We might be a little past that. How would we adapt that type of a narrative for a little bit more mature audience? Anybody have any ideas? Yes, tonight?
Well, I have these major coupons for new shoes down at Parade of Shoes, and I need a ride. Do you think that we could all go together, and I'll share my coupons with you? We can go get some new shoes.
Okay. So she's talking about, I've got some coupons to go down and get some new shoes, and we could all leave our job, take a little, somebody else will clock us in so we can all go shoe shopping and no one will know. Now, is that something realistic in today's society and in our real world today? Is that something that would, I mean, honestly, I've encountered that before. I used to have a job, and there was someone who actually, everyone knew that he would clock you in. You just needed to be, if you're going to be late, you just call him and let you know, and he will clock you in. You just tell him your code and punched it into the computer, and you were working, even though you were 2 hours late for work in the morning.
Yeah.
So you see how we could adapt that for an older group and really connect with the fact that that's not honest? But also flip it over. It's done so very often, every day, that dishonesty is normal. And that's what the Peaceful Solution Character Education does. That's what it changes. We really encourage strongly that we start changing that thought process, because that is normal behavior now. You can call Bob and tell him your number and he'll punch you in, right? Or clock you in, or however your little process works. Okay? I'm working off of too many pages here. There was a very interesting little narrative that I was reading. Jack and Timothy, this is on page 155, went to the store to buy some candy, and on the way back home, Jack discovered that he had gotten more change than he was supposed to. He turned to Timothy and said, "Hey, that woman gave us more change than we were supposed to get." And Timothy said, "Well, she should have paid more attention. It's more for us." Now, how would we adapt that? I have just, I'm not even joking you, 3 days. Okay, now it's 5 days ago, I think. I was at the store. I was buying a blind. I was buying 2 blinds, one for one person's office, one for another person's office. And I knew that one was gray and one was brown. I went through the checkout counter, and I knew one was on sale. The gray one was on sale, but the brown one was not on sale. I got out the door, and I was like, wow, I should have bought an extra blind, because obviously that sale was a better sale than I thought. So I looked at the receipt, which I usually wouldn't have paid attention to, because the price was like half of what I thought it was going to be, and I saw that she did not charge me for the second window blind. I got charged for the one that was on sale, but not the one that wasn't on sale. Most people would have walked on. You know how I know that? Because when I went back, she thought I was crazy for going back. I mean, the look I got from the lady at the checkout counter was just like, I can't believe you came back in here to point out that you owe us more money. Right? And I was like, well, she was like, well, it's our mistake. I should have paid better attention. She probably would have gotten into a little bit of trouble. Inventory control, right? Being caught not having scanned it or whatever. So she wanted me to keep on going out the door. It's my fault. Don't worry about it. Well, no, I have to worry about it, because that's on me. And I'm a student of the peaceful solution, right? And I want to be honest. It's normal, though. It's normal to not be. So I would use that story, like I just did now, to adapt that lesson from being 5th graders. I have a 5th grader. She's 10. Anybody here 10? No? Little bit past 10? Okay, so you all are 11. And so you've gone a little bit past grade 5, right? So we have to learn how to adapt these lessons so that we don't lose our audience. We have to connect with the people we're teaching. But I really was at the store just a few days ago checking out, and that took place with me. How many other times does it take place and people just obviously pass on through? Obviously well enough that the lady knew, oh, it's my fault, don't worry about it, keep going. And I couldn't do that because, it wasn't going to sit right in my own mind. It wasn't right for my conscience, right? So that's just another way that we can learn to adapt these lessons. If it says bring poster board and crayons, for the 11-year-olds, it might be a little bit, crayons might not be the right choice for those of us who are still 11. So we want to kind of move to a way that connects with your audience. Does that make sense? Now, this lesson also covers to tell or not to tell. So if I would have said, oh my word, guess what? I just got out of that store and I got this blind that should have cost me $30 free. And that person who I told that to not reported it, that would have been on them as well. Do you see how that works? So the honesty carries. What do you do with it? This lesson really touches on the shootings. We've seen an increased number of school shootings. We saw the terrible shooting at that movie theater. So many people went to go see that opening of that movie. just to be really massacred there. Now, one thing that, and I'm going to read it, that is really important is that the people who knew in advance that somebody's having problems or plotting, making these plans, it lays on them as well. And so that's what we're here to change. With the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, that is what we are here to change. We have to have that honesty within us, that if we know of something, even if it's not our own problem, that we're going to make sure that we care enough. We show that respect to everyone. We show that full care and concern, which is what respect means for others, that we wouldn't keep it within ourselves and let so many people become hurt, right? In this particular shooting, let me go back and read it. It says, they saw the warning signs and they ignored them, and now friends and acquaintances of another youth charged in connection with a school shooting incident will have to live with their inaction. And you hear people all the time, they'll get on those news programs and they'll talk about, if only I had spoken, I saw the signs, but I did nothing. And they live with that, and it affects them for the rest of their life, right? They talk about the next door neighbor that they knew had problems, but they didn't report. And that's something that sticks with you forever. And it's a terrible thing to carry within yourself. Well, if only they had been taught the peaceful solution. Well, now we can be taught the peaceful solution. That's what we have here in our hands. And it doesn't matter what grade level it says, because we're learning how to adapt that grade level, whatever it might be, to our audience. I could be teaching out of grade 5 to the kindergarteners and still connect with them. I could still make it go to their level. It says, firearms rights leaders across the nation have uniformly noted that this might have been averted had those who were tipped by the 15-year-old accused killer if they had notified those authorities. Columbine High School gunmen, and it gives their name, Dylan Klebold and Kevin Harris, were directly linked to a violent video production that detailed their fantasy about shooting the jocks at school. They made a video about it, but still no one connected the dots. Or if they did, they didn't give that information to the right people. So important that we stress that honesty isn't just about the person who's committing the act, whatever it might be, but also there's a big responsibility for those who are around them. The word honest means truthful, trustworthy, and fair. And it's the word fair I really want to point out, because fair means different things to different people. Just like the word respect, just like the word responsibility. If you say to just anyone that you meet on the street, if you ask them what they think the word fair means, they're probably going to say, oh, it means that whatever I do for you, you do back to me. That's a fair deal, right? But fair is giving to others what is rightfully theirs. It is following the rules. It doesn't mean I get to make up the rules and that's fair. It means that I have to follow the rules. And it also means not to side with those who make wrong choices. Now, how many people would have come up with that definition all on their own when they say fair? You hear in young and old alike, this is not fair. This situation isn't fair. Our world isn't fair. Our politicians aren't fair. Our court system isn't fair. My parents aren't fair. But there's an actual definition to the word fair that's important. Not to side with those who make wrong choices. Going back to being that honest person. Could you step aside? And when I came out of that store with that blind and I said, whew, Looky there, she didn't ring me out for that. Fair would have been someone who was with me that I said that to say, you should turn around and go let that woman know that she didn't charge you for that. Fair would have been making sure that the right choice was made, even if it means standing up to your friend, right? That peer pressure, peaceful solution, talks about that peer pressure, right? It's not just limited to those who are 10 years old and in 5th grade. Peer pressure is all around us all the time. Now, had I come out of that store and I said that to someone and they were like, whoo, you better hurry up and get home with that so that they don't realize it was you. Are you on camera? You know? Do you see? We have to make sure that when we are representatives of the peaceful solution, and that's what each and every one of us are here to do right now, that we're making sure that we represent it in everything that we do. Giving others what is rightfully theirs. That would have included me coming out of that store and turning back around and paying for that blind, right? Fair. I was thinking about the other day, I was watching one of the presidential debates, and I was dwelling about this lesson, knowing that I was going to have to speak about honesty, and I was thinking, how different would our world be if 100% of the time you knew everyone was being honest? And I was watching the presidential debate, and two fine gentlemen talking backwards and forwards with one another, but imagine if we were listening to these two men and you knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that their dealings with one another were fair, that the words that they were speaking back to us were fair and honest. How much different would our decisions be then when it comes to election time? If we're sitting in a courtroom as a jury member, imagine that. That's a pretty big decision that you're making on someone's life. And you knew that whatever the words that that person was saying was honest, totally honest. Imagine how different our school systems would be if we're sitting and we're listening to two children and you know beyond the shadow of a doubt that they're both giving an honest account of whatever took place. That the teacher, who's the mediator, could be 100% honest when talking with the parents. Our world would be really different, wouldn't it? But most people don't know that definition of what honest and fair means. Honest means truthful, trustworthy, and fair. Then you have to figure out what honest, truthful, and fair means, right? What is fair? Is it, well, last time Timmy won the argument, so this time Bobby needs to win the argument because that's fair? No, it's not. But do you see how sometimes that actually takes place? It does. There is a story here. I'm going to ask you to help me adapt it after I read it to you. Stan, Bob, and Jimmy are in the same class. 3 boys. They sit next to each other, and Stan and Bob are best friends. Okay, so we're going to think about how we're going to adapt this beyond the 5th grade, okay? But Bob does not like Jimmy. We all thinking about our own lives? Stan noticed that Bob stuck his foot out and tripped Jimmy. Jimmy fell to the floor, and he told Mrs. Wright that Bob tripped him, but Bob denied it. Mrs. Wright asked Sam if he saw how Jimmy had fell. So before I ask any questions about that, you can imagine the choices that the little boy has to make. Do I tell? Do I not tell? This is my best friend. This little boy sits by us, but we don't really like him very much. We can imagine if everyone was honest, if the children were completely taught what honesty is, if the teacher was taught how to discern and watch, and that she'd been teaching the children honesty, we'd have a totally different situation. First of all, the boy wouldn't have even been tripped in the first place. You see how the whole thing could have been totally averted. But now let's think about in adult lives. How would we turn this particular scenario into a lesson for a more mature audience. Anybody have ideas? Yes.
Well, I was thinking about like in an office situation where you were going to have a meeting and discuss ideas maybe on how to increase revenue for the business. And there's the three friends and Jimmy, I guess was his name, told I don't remember the third friend's name, the one who had to be honest. But this one told this middle friend his idea and said, this is what I'm going to tell the boss. And Bob didn't have a great idea. So Bob makes sure he raises his hand first in that meeting and gives Jimmy's idea as his own. And then it's Jimmy's turn, and he said, well, that was my idea. I was just discussing it with this other friend. And so then the boss says, okay, all right, whose idea was it?
Right.
Because you were both supposed to come up with something, someone didn't do their job. And so then he'd have to make that choice.
Well, then let's think about some consequences. You have promotions. Somebody's I've been working for 3 months on this I'm in marketing, so I'm going to say marketing plan. And someone else steals his idea. First, we're talking about stealing. So words can steal, right? Totally disrespected him. He maybe was really hoping that great idea was going to help him and his family get a little bit of a lift in their life. Maybe with a paycheck, a promotion, stolen from him, right? The boss can't decide who is being honest and not being honest. How do you tell? What are some other consequences that could have taken place after that? Someone stole someone's idea, claimed it as their own. What else could take place after that scenario? Yes?
It's kind of pitting them against each other now that there's going to be this contention in the workplace.
There will always. Whenever something negative comes up, people hold on to that. They might let the positive go, pat them on the back, they did a great job. But when someone does something negative, it sticks in your mind and you hold a grudge against them, right? Yes?
Well, in light of all the office shootings, the one whose idea got taken away could very likely take a gun into the office and shoot the other one.
Yes. She's talking about violent actions. And I would say maybe 30 or 40 years ago, that would be a vague, far-off story. Now it's every day. Someone gets angry, makes a bomb. Why? Because he stole my idea. It's become, once again, normal. Those types of behaviors are becoming more and more normal. Even when I was a child, which wasn't very long ago because I'm still only 11 years old here, the thought that someone would take a gun into school, that was not even thought of. Children did not take handguns to school. But now it is common. I saw a film where the little children are talking about how many security guards they have. I never had a security guard in my school. If we had a squabble, you'd go to the teacher. Now you can get hauled off to jail. And because of that, you're going to bring a gun to school the next time they let you back to school. You'll shoot that boy, that girl, that teacher, that principal. Take the guards out too. That is becoming more normal. Do you see how these situations could quickly start? They escalate, and it sounds like a crazy story, but it's so true now. Honesty, that basic principle, is not taught. But we can see the picture. If it was totally flip-flopped and everyone were honest, how much better it would be. Sounds far-fetched. Can we get it back that way? Can we get it back that way? It used to be normal that a handshake sealed a deal. People were honest with one another. And whenever someone wasn't, everybody knew it. They avoided that person like a plague because he was dishonest. But now it's assumed that you will be. How did we get here? We need to go back to that place where honesty was normal, where people had a conscience, right? And for some reason we're overlooking that. It's skipped I don't know, this whole big gap is now, and that's what the peaceful solution is going to feel. There's not going to be that gap anymore. It will become normal again once we start talking to people and educating people. Start with the little ones. That's why it's so important that we have these grade 5, we have intermediate series for these children so that these little stories connect with them and it makes sense. And they see that they can make change. Because really our hope is on our future, which is on our children. And they want to be different. They want that safety and security. They really do not want to go to school every day with 15 security guards roaming the hallways. They don't want to be faced with the thought that somebody's going to bring a gun to school with them. They don't want that. But it's become their normal. We need to change that normal. And that's why we have these books. But it doesn't mean that because we're past 11 years old, that we're not going to have that opportunity to make changes in our own lives, right? We're here because we all want change. And we're here because we all found that key to give us the change. It starts with those basic principles. We've learned already about character and personality. That's that first little thing that you do when you meet someone to make sure that you're interacting in the right way with that person. It's not personality, it's about looking at their character. It's not about avoiding them because they don't have that positive character all the time, but it's time to start showing them what positive character is. Doesn't mean you have to give them a lecture every time you see them, but it grows. It grows, and people notice it about you, then suddenly you become that honest person that people don't mind that handshake with. And then they want to be that same person. And it grows and it grows and it grows. That's what the peaceful solution does. We learned about respect. And we learned that it doesn't mean you have to earn somebody's respect before you give it to them. Right? It's given to everyone. It's a blanket. It's a blanket. And when people see how you treat them, you deal fairly with them because you're an honest person, they give you the responsibilities of caring for maybe their business, right? Same thing you're doing with your children when you're teaching them that fairness, that honesty, She didn't slam the door on her brother every time he carried the wood through the house, right? She had that little responsibility. And eventually she got bigger and she was carrying the wood because mom and dad trusted her to be responsible enough not to smack her brother with the big piece of wood, right? Whatever it might be. And as you get older, you get more responsibility. But it starts somewhere. It starts with that basic difference between character and personality. I have a loud personality. It's just who I am. I'm a very animated person. Now, I have friends who are so very shy and quiet, I don't even know how we ever get along with one another. But our character is the core, right? They know that I'm going to be honest and fair with them because we have that same definition of what honest and fair is. That's why the peaceful solution is so important. It builds those strong foundations.